Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Whitepod. My name is Harshit, and I'm the Director of Business Alliances at White Labs. We are a digital agency specializing in SaaS and e-commerce marketing. And my today's guest is the co-founder and CEO of OnBoard Meetings, a leading digital board management platform that helps organizations prepare, conduct, and analyze board meetings. A big welcome to you, Paroon, and I'm so happy to have you with me.
Namaste. Apropos, since both of us grew up in India, hello to everybody.
Uh, Well, we'd love to know about your journey. What were you like as a young child? And then maybe take us through how exactly Passageway happened.
Just for the audience benefit, I should actually say so the company that I run today is called OnBoard. The parent company, Topco, is called Passageways. OnBoard, simple, secure, and effective way to prepare and run your board meetings. A platform that unifies and secures communication, all the workflows associated with the board meeting, the minutes preparation, resolution, and so and helps you engage extremely importantly with your board for collaborative and productive outputs from all hours that go into the board work. So that's what OnBoard does. We work with about 5,000 organizations worldwide based in the US. But to answer your question and how did it all start, I grew up in New Delhi. And after my schooling in Delhi, I went to Punjab Engineering College, Chandigarh, and did industrial engineering. Didn't really pursue engineering. In fact, out of school, I started working for Wipro. Worked for 2 years in a sales role, Wipro Hyderabad, and then Delhi. I really enjoyed that time because it was 2000, 99 and 2000 vintage, when Wipro was extremely high growth company led by Ashok Sutta, making waves all over the world. And to be part of high growth at scale experience was a formative experience in my life. 2 years into that role, I came to US for my MBA at Purdue University. And at the university, I found my co-founder, Chris, and started working on a business plan for a business plan competition at Purdue. That same business plan is what I'm still running 20 years later. Now, lots of twists and turns along the way. The initial product was an employee intranet product called Ensemble, which we since sold 2 years ago. So we ran that profitably for the first 10, 12 years. And then after Chris was eventually activated. He wanted to do other stuff. So he was gone. We pivoted into not the intranet, but the extranet part of it. So we started working with people outside the organizations, the board of directors being the main one. And in the year 2010, 11 vintage, we started to move towards OnBoard being the future of the company. And really, it's now become the flagship product line. And we've continued to actually see lots of success. And hence, Ensemble business to really make that with sense. We found better custodians to our early years. They truly were. That whole business was instrumental in funding OnBoard. We stayed bootstrapped all this while until 4 years ago when we took first issue capital, continued to invest in OnBoard. And then 2 years ago, we bought a business called eScribe. eScribe is also in the same governance space, just public governance meetings. So today we are OnBoard and eScribe under the parent company called Passageways, and we serve customers in over 60 countries. Employees actually primarily based in Indianapolis, Midwest. Some of us are actually, I'm based out of California. There's a concentration of employees in Toronto, Markham. There's a concentration of employees around London, in UK, and then there's a concentration of employees in Melbourne and Sydney in Australia. So that's how we are organized.
Brilliant. Can you please tell us a bit more about the platform, like its core features, expertise, and maybe like some of the main USPs of the platform altogether?
Yeah, absolutely. So OnBoard, I talk about OnBoard, but all of this applies to eScribe with just one caveat. All public sector meetings are open meetings because of open sunshine rules. But the meeting actually really has broadly the same sort of trajectory. So OnBoard allows you to prepare, think about the entire year, what kind of meetings you're going to have, 4 meetings, 6 meetings, 8 meetings, what do you need? Think about the agenda for every meeting, collaborate around what's not on the agenda will not get discussed. So building the right agenda is a pretty key part of board interactions. And then once the agenda is finalized, preparing the material, publishing them for review, So board members can come prepared, publishing all the materials, apply for the right time frame to, get reviewed. And then you actually have the board meeting itself. In the board meeting, taking minutes, take minutes approved, and then also thinking about all the output of the board meeting. So that's a bulk of what the onboard platform allows you to do securely, certainly, efficiently, and then keeping things simple because we don't want to be the story in the boardroom. We want to be the platform that stays in the backdrop while the business of business is the story in your boardrooms. We also see this is all before in the board meeting and right after the board meeting. There's another cycle of work, which is the annual cycle of work, essentially thinking a little long term. So the chief executive and the leadership team and the board is also thinking about the future state of the organization. We start with the future state of your board. Do you have the right people, the right skills, the right experiences? We help you to model those future boards. Are you all reading the right stuff? There's a reading room that you can build within the platform, which allows the key seminal pieces that you want everybody to read. You can share those. Then you also actually can think about the roles and the terms. There's a lot of committees often supporting the board, from executive comm committee to governance committee to nomination committee. Sometimes it's actually nomination governance the same committee. And then there's often other committees, audit committee, loan committee if you're a bank, and so on. Lots of those committees roll up to the board work as well, thinking about their agendas, right? People in those teams. All of that is also done in the platform. To give you a sense of this scale, working with 5,000 boards in 22 working days, 66 working days in a quarter, you can imagine everybody has at least 2 or 3 meetings, committee meetings, plus the board meeting every quarter. You can imagine literally 15, 20,000 meetings in every quarter in 66 working days. On any given day, that's the scale that we're talking about. We work with 1,000 banks and trade unions. To give you a sense of that, that itself is a significant amount of work. When the financial crisis, which keeps showing up every 4 or 5 years, we see the frequency of meetings go up and so on. We work with about 500 universities and higher ed institutions all over the world. We work with about a similar number of hospitals and hospital systems. We work with well over 1,000 nonprofits and lots of tech companies, lots of investment firms, private equity, venture funds, and such. And that gives you a sense of who's actually using these platforms. Often publicly listed companies, hundreds of those, private companies, companies that are like ourselves. We use our own platform. And then nonprofits. And then through our eScribe product, we also actually have government entities. These are city councils, local government, counties, some state agencies, some national agencies, all using our platforms for their board work.
Gotcha. And if you have to describe the 3 main challenges, 3 to 4 main challenges that your target customer actually face, and which OnBoard basically leads them to subscribe to OnBoard altogether, and your platform solves it brilliantly. Can you please tell us about those challenges?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about challenges that they know of and challenges they should think about that they may not even be aware of. And that'll be my list actually. First, and start out with, obviously, most people are looking at a board platform as a replacement for sending emails and Google Docs and PDFs and all these, right? It works, getting information from point A to point B. There are many ways to do that, no doubt. The real challenge here is, first of all, these are the crown jewels of information. Even if you're a private company, public company, non-profit, some of the information you share with the board has PII in it, and it is to be secured now. So security is the first and foremost why somebody should look at it. Number 2 in my book is you have a board and there's a lot of time that goes into it, putting these board meetings and board interactions together, tens of hours every episode. And you want to get a great return on it. Return on your board work, which is efficiency really. That's a pretty important reason why you should do this. Being able to collaborate on the agenda, being able to actually follow up in between meetings, being able to think about the annual cycle work. so you engage the board fully, is extremely important. And I think that's the number two. The third reason in my book is obviously liability. And this is the one that's underestimated. In fact, I would say if everybody just understood the liability they're taking on from just half-assing their board work, they'd probably all buy a board software, a board platform. And the reason for this is when you actually share information on email, even though it's meant to be privileged information, what you share with your board, but the fact is, if a board member is actually using their corporate email and that email is scanned by IT, which often every organization does, you are waiving privileges right there without realizing. That really happened over and over again. The WeWork case is a good example. We know so much about WeWork because one of the board members from SoftBank actually used the SoftBank email, which was scanned. And then when the lawsuit was filed, and that they ended up having some legal action between the investor and the firm, all of that information became public information. It was part of discovery because the privilege was waived. Unbeknownst to the board member who was doing it. The same thing happened in the Papa John's case. The same, we know about the horrors of what happened. All the discovery work that boards often have to be mindful of, and sometimes they have to contend with. You don't want a non-discerning actor to end up doing something which actually brings about exposure to them or to the firm. Exposure to them personally is also important often because when your email becomes part of discovery, everything in your email box is actually out and available. And who knows what may actually end up being exposed in this process. It can often be very personal and embarrassing information as well, as has often been the case.
Sure.
So liability from this, liability from back and forth messaging with the directors, while a board platform will give you a messaging system which is contained. And after the board meeting, all these records are purged. And you have what you need is all that you record. It's just the board book and the minutes of the resolution, and that's it. You don't need to save anything else. None of the annotations, none of the back and forth messaging. So none of that should be part of your discovery process. That's why I say when you duct it in to run your board meetings, you are bringing on liability, which could be tens of thousands of dollars. And you don't want to bring that upon your organization, nor on your directors. So that's number three. Reason number four for me is really you have to think about professionalizing your board meetings. As a chief executive, as leadership team members, your board meeting actually really has to be one of the most crisp interactions you have. And every CEO worth their while, yes, to it. But when it comes to board meetings, you don't invest the $10,000, $20,000 that you may invest in this is the small price to pay to really instill the confidence in the board members and really allow the best interaction in the boardroom. So that's reason number four. And then reason number five in my book is, look, technology is a great enabler, right? Now, we know that from all of what we've seen. I think especially in the boardroom where there's so much information density, just by nature, there's often board books that are more than 100 pages, 200 pages. It's lots of reports to read. By organizing it very well and deploying technology on top of, for example, we have already released an AI assistant in our software. Right. You now have a chance to really use technology, not just to organize information, but to get the right summaries created, the right question being prompted, and helping execs as well as board members. And that's become the fifth reason in my book over the last year or so to think about deploying technology. These are the same reasons that everybody should consider when they think about board technology. I really do believe these are the same things apply whether you're a public sector board or you are actually a private company or a publicly listed company or a non-profit.
That's interesting to see you using AI. Any other automation that the platform offers?
Lots of them actually. You certainly have. Look, the whole process is actually pretty straightforward. There's an agenda, there's a meeting, and then there's the follow-on work. Really, there's a chance to create past meetings to be actually used for future work. That's a simple example. And then there is the board could actually be looking at the minutes right after the meeting, which is very important because good execution requires a review was discussed and make sure it's reflective of what was actually to be followed up on. That's actually really a great automation part as well, where we have the ability to actually get the minutes routed and created while the meeting is on. Increasingly, we are looking at using technology to really create those minutes for the boards as well. AI provides a great avenue for that as well. There is a lot of modeling that you can do. So, who do you have on your board currently? And what do you really need? What skills would actually serve you well for the future state of the organization? If you remove a board member, because they're going to actually turn around, what skills do you now need as you think about the new board members? When you bring in a new person, what does that board look like? So we have visualization around roles, terms, skills, experiences. All of these are automated for you to actually get clarity around these important topics. And then there's a lot of workflows, conflict questionnaires, which boards have to fill out. If you have a conflict of interest and you declared it last year, pre-filling that for this year's conflict questionnaire is very important. The directors don't have to remember what did I declare last time, what since. They just have to think about just the delta of last submission and this submission. Helping and enabling all of that along the way is actually what technology does. So all of those are examples of things that are currently being automated.
And any other, because of the niche trends that's going on, any other product development that's on your roadmap?
I'd say actually at this point we are focused around a couple of big themes.
Okay.
The first one is AI, of course, enabling the platform at a platform level with the art that we actually pretty important. This intelligent agent will become a staple in the out years. For the moment, we are starting to actually see the early green shoots on what this technology provides. I'd say just think of a day when, as you walk into the board meeting, you have a chance to actually ask your intelligent agent to look through the last board deck, look through the last 3, 4 board decks and all the information that has been shared, scan the competitive space, look at the macro environment and tell you what are the questions that I should be asking? What are some key risks to the organization? And to have that information curated based on your experience and your skills is powerful. That's something that I think even the best of us can do by ourselves perfectly for every board meeting. Now you have a chance to comprehensively dip into that. Collective intelligence is available at a click of a mouse, and how it applies well to thinking about the next quarter, the next year, the next 3 years. As this technology develops, you'll find more and more of AI get incorporated. And we're also doing it in a way which is important to point out. The board work this is all confidential information, right? It's privileged information. So we are creating a way for organizations to be able to do that within our platform such that you're not contributing to the large language models.
Gotcha.
You're only able to pull out the intelligence from the LLMs like ChatGPT and such without sharing or contributing the organization specific knowledge to the large language models. So do it in a way that actually allows you to not be in violation of bylaws. That's a pretty key part of what we're doing. And then, of course, the next set of technologies next set of developments in the board space that are important are to do with the fact that governance work continues to get more and more complex with every passing year, every passing quarter. Sometimes like these business cycles tend to come at us faster and faster. So with that in mind, I think boards are evolving. The boardrooms are evolving all over the world. And diversity is a big part of what every organization is trying to actually put together in the boardrooms. And we are enabling that through our platform by giving you a good sense of your demographics in the boardroom, the diversity matrix that you can put together and look at, what do you currently have so you can work towards the right future state. A lot of the stock exchanges, NASDAQ in particular, requires you to report on this. So we are adhering to standards that people have to actually report back on. But I think as ESG, specifically diversity as part of G, part of ESG is an important element of what we are progressing as well. These are some of the things that we're trying to do. Again, we do all of this without complicating the board work, because the board work itself is inherently the most important objective here. So to do all of this such that you are there when they need it, but you also prompt them with certain other things that they could be looking at. And I think that's where I feel simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. I repeat that often to my team. Keeping things simple is extremely sophisticated. It's extremely advanced. How do you actually do that in the context of what we're talking about? Some of the most complex work in the enterprise. That remains the focus of our pursuit. So those are some of the things that we are actually currently focused on.
Actually, rightly said that the much easy the user interface is. Definitely, like most of the good established SaaS companies across globe, the main focus is on the user interface altogether because that really helps the users to a lot of extent, and that's also one of the prime reasons that people stick to your software for long. And yeah, and I've seen across multiple industries, if the interface isn't good, even though you're giving far more value with respect to the data and everything, people will drop. So that reminds me of my next question. What all loyalty programs do you have to keep your customers satisfied and keep them for the long run altogether?
Great question, actually. I don't think we are very well developed on actual loyalty program, even though it's been a topic of conversation internally. What I will say is really being transparent with what you're doing, what you're offering, providing the sense of security. What you do on the platform is something that we don't actually turn around and sell to any vendor or monetize in another way. That's been a big part of what we continue to push on. Stay true to its stated value. And then in addition to that, building a really awesome experience. I think that enables loyalty. That inspires loyalty. That actually enables the word of mouth that we enjoy so much. I should say that we are, at least I'd say that we are the most viewed application in our space. And whether you are an Apple's app store where we probably have 50 times more, maybe 100 times more reviews than our next competitor.
You're the platform as well.
Yeah, we have great traffic on the web. You noted that. And we certainly are the second largest provider by volume. And I would even say easily the fastest growing in the top 4 companies as well. So we have great momentum, but certainly most number of reviews, highest rated on Apple's App Store, Crowd, you'll see that there's a trend that we are rated really high as well. And then, yeah, I think a lot of that is actually based on just the approach to business and the fact that we have continued to stay in the investment more on the technology side. So we are up against some esteemed competitors. They've been there for longer. They're often larger platforms, but they're older. Frankly, we were built for the multi-tenant, the mobile world, the world that we find. It's difficult to keep up with if you didn't build it like that. So it's by design, the architecture that really enabling us to move fast. Whether it was the Touch ID or the Face ID or AI agents or integration of Office 365 and on, each one of these innovations, we were the first in our industry, not because maybe we are faster and better anyway, but no, that's not really the prime reason in my book. I think it's because of the architecture. And the architecture enables us to do those things faster. We have stayed away from acquiring 7, 10, 15 companies, mainly because we're in a very pure pursuit of building the experience that inspires and enables the best board work that an organization can do. And to acquire technology investments that have to be in alignment. And you don't want to create a Frankenstein of an application because then you lose the pure pursuit that you are on. The commercial pursuit can sometimes actually confuse the user experience just because you bought this application, you bought this company, and now you're trying to jam it all together. And we've been very disciplined in our approach towards that.
That's brilliant. And your online reviews actually do talk about these things. I've seen it on Capter or G2. the users, existing users that you have. They're really putting word out for the platform altogether about the user interface and whatnot. Yeah, it's good to see that that has been your prime focus altogether. And I would like to know because yours is all like B2B. So what channels do you leverage for your own lead generation? I know organic for fact, but what other channels do you use?
Primarily, I would say organic seems to be the one that's outperformed everything else. We try a bunch of things. One thing I will say is that while we are a horizontal application, a board meeting is a board meeting with a manufacturing company or a tech company or a utilities company or a hospital. What we have done is we've actually really become very good in a few sectors and a few geos.
Yep.
So the sector that we actually target, let's say financial services, like this big sector. So we partnered with organizations in that sector, and we've actually really worked closely with Independent Community Bankers of America and Filing, and that's why you find American Bankers Association use the product, Independent Community Bankers of America use the product, Filing use the product, Canadian National Association use the product. No, I can actually go on. So we've invested in those verticals because of which we have so many customers in that same vertical. So while we have a horizontal product, we've really stayed true to a few chosen verticals. And these vertical sectors allow us to stay close to our customer needs, engage with them more deeply and more meaningfully. That informs our product strategy. That actually allows us to amplify the word in that segment. So investing in partnerships has been a big part of what we've done. So the channel becomes the partners in each vertical. And AGB is a good example. Higher ed. So in higher ed, Association of Governing Boards, amazing organization that we've now worked for nearly 5 years, maybe or thereabouts. They work with the top universities and higher ed organizations in the world, specifically work with the board of trustees. We partner with them in our products called AGB OnBoard in the higher ed space, and that partnership is actually reflected in some of the product direction and become a big part of differentiation in that space, showing up at the right places where we're talking to people and really learning from them fast, then into wins within the platform. That's the other piece. So word of mouth, organic, and then working the chips in every sector. And then we've stayed true to a few geos. I mentioned the US, Canada, UK, some of the EMEA region, and then Asia Pacific, led by Australia. We've not tried to be everything to everybody. And there is a lot of discipline that you have to show when you do this. For example, India, I grew up in that place, the most populous nation in the world. I know it's a big market firsthand. I know that. It's a country that's actually doing a bunch of stuff. Yet I've had to hold back the visceral reaction to let's go there. It's a big market. Let's invest. Mainly because we won't actually be there wherever we are and do a great job. And we are not there yet in India for a reason. I believe it's a matter of time, but certainly it's an example of the discipline that you have to show to create these channels. It's not about going broad in my book. It's more about investing in a few places, picking your spots, being a good partner. Being a true partner is the company value. And whether it's partnering with customers or partnering with my employees, partnering with my investors, or partnering with any particular channel partner, that is one of the things that we pay close attention to and we could do. And that's why these are the two main dominant channels in my work.
I'm curious now, Paroon, because you're in such an interesting niche altogether. And how's the churn rate in your industry, like in your micro industry altogether? Yeah.
Industry, I don't know what the industry churn rate. I'd probably say it's an industry where 90% retention happens on an aggregate. Maybe that may change with time here, but certainly it's a high retention industry.
Yep.
Much higher than the industry rates. And depending on the segment and the geo, but we certainly are actually in high 90s. And some verticals are just amazing, nearly full retention. And so we are a high retention pursuit. And the reason is fairly straightforward to think about. Once you commit to a good platform, people tend to just stay there. It just works day in, day out. We are not afforded a bad day. We don't have bad days, knock on wood, but we certainly find out that on the other side of it, it actually really is very helpful because once your board information starts to build out, people get used to it. Often the demographic in the boardroom skew towards being on the older side and they're change averse. Whatever they get used to, they want to stay with that, especially if that vendor is actually doing a good job. And that translates to high retention. So that's where I think one of the areas that I've always known that if you do the right thing and say what you do and do what you, these customers are going to be there. In fact, I have customers who bought software from me 20 years ago, still as customers. It's just one of the most amazing. There are how many people you talk to who can actually say this.
Very few they have been loyal to a software for 20 years because every now and then there's something new out there in the market, right? Which might cater to your needs better. So people do switch. But I think the reason you've been able to retain for so long is for the fact that, first of all, like, your own development pace is really good. So you keep on adding new things, keep on evolving your own product. I had, again, their own experience with the company altogether. Cumulative might have resulted to such high retentions, but yeah, that's actually rare in business altogether.
Absolutely. In fact, my very first customer, Purdue Federal Credit Union, I was a student at Purdue University, and my finance professor sent me to go talk to the credit union in town. And I just come out of India, first year of being in US, year into it. I didn't even know what federal credit union actually meant. In fact, federal was a word that I didn't want to really get close to. Just scared me at that time. Credit was another word that I didn't want to get close to. It scared me. Union was another word. When they're all jammed together, it took an effort on my part to pick up the phone and talk to them, and they became my first customer. Bob, who runs Purdue Fed, has been a great mentor, awesome partner. They've been a customer for over 20 years. Just mind boggling. Just go back and think about when you stay true to your customers and you really listen to some of your advisors, amazing things can happen. So for me, actually, this is a very real thing that 20 years from now, some of these customers will still be using this platform. Hopefully, we'll actually continue to go from scale to scale. And so I actually really have been charged with being very long term in my thinking. And I wear that as a badge of honor, often difficult to do in this day and age. But that's it is a hallmark of my journey.
That's brilliant, man. Well, do you have few more minutes? Just bear with me. I would like to have a bit rapid fire with you.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
What habit holds you back the most?
That's a good one. What habit holds me back the most?
Yep.
I think if you've had my journey, wanting to give people a lot of second chances and third chances because people by and large have been good to me and it's been amazing. Believing in people around you and giving them chances often again and again. Sometimes has come back and held me back because you just don't have the time in these rapid cycles that we're on. I think being clinical about holding people accountable is something that I continue to work on. And I realize that holds me back sometimes. It's been wonderful to see some of those turnaround stories too. They are all few and far between.
Gotcha. Okay. What did you last search on Google?
I searched about your podcast and look at what you guys are all about. That's what I said about last.
Okay, that's good. What career did you dream of having as a kid?
That's a good one. I grew up in a household with a photo editor of Times of India as I grew up in Michael's place. And I used to go watch cricket matches and sitting on the boundary line and really just got to know a few of the cricketers growing up as well. And not so informed me wanted to be a cricket commentator. I realized I'm not going to be a cricketer, even though I played enough cricket at school. There were others who seemed like they could outrun me and outthrow me and outbat me. But being a cricket commentator was one I fancied. Certainly didn't even try, didn't even give it a shot. But that was my first sort of career aspiration, if you will.
Because I actually wanted to become a truck driver because my family was into logistics. Thank you so much, Praveen, for all the time, all the wisdom that you've shared on today's podcast. I'm sure our viewers will love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arshad. Did appreciate it. Thank you. Enjoyed it. Bye-bye.